What first drew you to this fraternity?
So although I was initiated through the Chicago Alumni Chapter in 1998, I was actually initially exposed to the fraternity when I first got to college at Chicago State University in 1984 as a freshman. So I saw the brothers on the yard. They were at parties that, of course, either on or off campus. And I did not know it at that time, but of course, I had at least two family members, cousins of mine, adult cousins, who were members of the fraternity at that time. I never knew anything about it. They never told me anything about it. I had no exposure to Greek life. So when I came to the parties and I saw the Noops and I saw, the AKAs and the Deltas and everybody else, my mind was blown. I had never seen anything like it before in my life. So it was a new experience for me. So that was when I first became exposed to it. And of course, your exposure to the fraternity in reference to parties is different than your what you learn about the fraternity later on. So I did not know about all the prestigious men that were part of the fraternity. I did not know the impact that they had, not just within the types of things the fraternity does, but also on a larger scale with society. So I had a lot to learn. So I met them on campus. I was still very intrigued. There was a Kappa smoker there that I went to. That's what they used to call them before they called them informationals. So met a great group of guys that I was in the smoker with. I was very excited, filled out an application. I made line. So the first time that I made line was not the time when I crossed when I came to the fraternity, but I made line there. Uh, and I dropped line because my grades were failing. So it's having a little bit too much fun. So so I left that line and I was kind of like in Kappa limbo for a while because I joined the Chicago Police Department, which like right before I graduated. So I still had about 12 hours of school left when I left to join the police department, and which I'm retired now. I've been retired 3 years now. I spent 32 years there. But at any rate, about 9 years later, after I dropped line, I got word that there was a Chicago alumni chapter would be having a line. So I came to, but this is not the smoker you're thinking of, KA.
Uh,
This is a smoker that happened the line before us in 97.
yeah.
So I came out for that one and I went through the interviews and I got selected again. I made line and I didn't go through with that line, not because of my choice, but because I didn't have all my money. so,
Yeah.
so uncharacteristic of Chicago alumni, they typically don't have lines back to back. We're going through a process right now where we're going to hold an informational for MTA
Hmm.
next month, and typically we don't have a line, but like every 5 years. It's not written, but it's just typically what happens. And so for them to have another line in '98
Yeah.
was was you know clearly it was destined for me to do it. So I came back. This time I had my money. I had already graduated. I had everything ready to go. So I was ready. So three times is a charm, and I actually came in 10 years after my process had started to
Uh,
come into the fraternity, and it shows the commitment that I had to finish what I started and to become a member of this fraternity.
how did that part of your journey with Kappa?
Uh, all of that is really an indirect thing. There's a minor connection. So after I joined Chicago Alumni Chapter in 1998, there was a brother in the chapter by the name of Winston Dawson. I don't know if you remember him, KA,
Hmm.
but Brother Dawson took me under his wing and he began to mentor me,
Hmm.
and particularly about Kappa history. So at the same time, I had an interest in learning more about the fraternity myself, more than what was taught to us. That at that time,
Mhm.
we had changed from the Scroller Club, and we were not in the
Yeah.
MIOP program. We were in the MOIP program. So that program um, only taught us so much, of course.
Yep.
And so I was intrigued to learn more. So um, every initiate, of course, gets their own copy of the story of Kappa Alpha Psi,
Yep.
and I read it from cover to cover. So it, of course, piqued my curiosity to learn more about the fraternity than what was presented in the book. So I started conducting independent research on my own to
Mhm.
inquire with older brothers in the chapter. And I ended up developing relationships with seasoned brothers like some brothers that, of course, you remember, Ka Brother Wayman Edwards, Alpha Psi 1948,
Yep.
Ned Dunbar, Iota Chapter 1956.
Yeah.
Uh, Brothers like that who shared uh, many aspects of their knowledge and experiences with me. And from, you know, developing those relationships, of course, they're introducing me to other brothers that can share similar things that they knew with me, and my quest for knowledge from that grew because I'm meeting and talking to Kappa legends, and their experiences cannot be, you can't be, they can't be duplicated with
Right.
just
Right.
uh, uh, encountering any random brother, because these guys, they're at the tip of the spear. So and from there I met and became great friends with two-time journal editor Jonathan Hicks,
Okay.
Delta Omega 77,
Uh-huh.
and our grand historian emeritus brother Dr. Ralph J. Bryson, Beta Eta 46. Those brothers really, their support and their belief in me helped to really forge a path for me to this position.
What motivated you to pursue leadership at the national level, and what ultimately led you to seek the office of Grand Historian?
To get to the office of Grand Historian, just like it, for one to ascend to that level for any office is not, um, it's not just a move that you make overnight.
Yeah.
And so that process started for me, as I mentioned earlier, about me honing my skills for that, just out of a quest for knowledge, to learn more about the fraternity. And so with doing that, I was really immersed in trying to learn more. And I eventually sought to become the historian for the Chicago Alumni Chapter, which I was elected to that office in 2007. And I'm still in that office today after uninterrupted service in that office to the chapter since 2007. So uh, a few years later, in 2010, I subsequently ran and became elected to serve as historian for the North Central Province. And I was doing that job at the same time while I was historian for Chicago, of course. And so I did that for a few years up until the time that I ran for the office of Grand Historian. I saw that not just in the office on the local and province levels, but also on the Grand Chapter level, there were a lot of things that I felt that just as myself when I came in as a neophyte, I was looking for more information that was not necessarily available, and I felt that information needed to come out, and it needed to come out at the highest level to be able to share it with the brothers. So the only way I could do that was to run for Grand Historian. Well, the issue was that, as I mentioned, Dr. Ralph J. Bryson, he was my mentor, and spoke to him several times during the course of a week, every week. And he eventually stepped down from his office in 2011. And so when he did that, I prepared myself to run for office in that interim for the next Grand Chapter meeting, which would be the 81st Grand Chapter meeting that happened in Houston in 2013.
describe what the Grand Historian does and why that role is key and central to the identity of our organization.
So when you look at it at its surface, you can open up your Constitution and statutes and you can look at how they define the role. And how they define it in basic terms is that the Grand Historian shall compile historical and biographical materials for the fraternity.
Right.
That's basically what it says my job is. So I believe the job calls for more, especially since there isn't a particular prerequisite that you do more, or it's not specified what you would do. So for me, what that looks like is my predecessors, all the way up into Dr. Bryson, they had something that I will never have. And that is they had the benefit of being around and personally meeting and knowing the founders.
Correct.
All of those grand historians prior to me, except for Cleveland Ferguson, had an opportunity to meet and know all the founders while they served in the role of grand historian. In fact, you can take three more out of that bunch because three of them actually were founders. so
Man.
so but here's the thing though, and of course again I'll say no shade, but this is just something that I recognize. The three founders who served in this role, Diggs, Armstrong, and Grant, none of them conducted an interview like you're doing right now to dig beneath the surface of what the basic biography tells us about each one of the founders, or what the story of Kappa Alpha Psi even tells us about the founding. Any other background information about either disagreements or some other hardships beyond the general things that have been taught to us, things that they went through, trials and tribulations, successes and failures, and all those sorts of things. All those things are part of our history. And because of the fact that they were not recorded to the extent that I'm speaking of, that was the time to do it while those guys were still with us. Our last living founder, who happened to also serve as grand historian, not our last living founder, a second to last living founder, which is founder Byron K. Armstrong, died in 1980. He also served in the position as grand historian. He didn't leave us that. He didn't leave us those breadcrumbs. And so my job, and anyone who comes behind us, is to create your own breadcrumbs. You do that through research. So when I came into this office, with a slogan, which is research, recover, retention. We're living in a world today where misinformation or just straight up lies or the removal of factual historical information and data is going to, it's not going to affect us today because we all know the truth. But for our children and our grandchildren and their children, if this persists, losing that history, if it's misinterpreted or misunderstood or not taught, not preserved, so that the next generation will know it as it's supposed to be, the lie becomes the truth. So what happens oftentimes, and I see this in a lot of brothers who may follow some of the things that comments that I make engaging with brothers on social media, they will argue with me about what I call tradition. It's not history. It's just what y'all do. it's not inculcated into the fabric of who we are as Kappa Alpha Psi. That's what y'all do over there.
What do you hope Kappas will say about how this generation, our group, preserve and honor the fraternity story? Because that's the important.
Well, it begins with a lot of things that we talked about already, about being true to our actual history, so that you can promulgate the truth and
Hmm.
not innuendo, not urban legends and things of that nature, and really just kind of follow the roadmap that the founders laid out for us. It has served us well. We're still here for 115 years. We should be able to say that we followed their blueprint.